All right, I want to talk to you guys about something that is quite impactful to me because it's pertaining to something that is somewhat personal to me, and that is my experience with the Catholic Church. I joined the Catholic Church in 2013 because I read a lot of the history of the Christian religion. I read a lot of the history of the Christian faith and the Christian church, and I loved the history, and I still love the history. And I saw in its history culture and art and poetry and this emphasis on beauty. And when I joined the Catholic Church in 2013, I was joining with the hopes of seeing some sort of a semblance of that history that I was reading. Well, frankly, I didn't see any of it. All I saw was really a bunch of priests going before a congregation of older people, boomers, elderly folks for the most part, saying some jokes, giving communion, and some horrible music would play. And that was it. That's pretty much what the Catholic Church has been reduced to. And it's really quite sad because the Catholic Church used to have this really, really majestic history. And now it's just an empty shell. It's a skeleton. It is, as they say, a shadow of its former self. And that really was what I saw for the most part. And then you had the dark side of what takes place in the Catholic Church. I am talking about the predatory behavior, the predator behavior that so many priests do, preying on young men and preying on boys. And there is so much of this in the Catholic Church. And I heard all of the apologetics coming from American Catholics about how the media is exaggerating the stories of the predator behavior coming from priests. Oh, the media is exaggerating the whole thing. They're blowing it out of proportion. Yes, they are bad priests here and there, but the media wants to make it out that it's this huge problem in the church when it really isn't. And I can tell you right now, from my experience, it is not overblown. It is not exaggerated. I can tell you right now, the predatory behavior done by priests is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It is like a cancer. It has spread its way throughout the institution of the church. And the priests who not only engage in this evil, but cover it up, these operatives, these people, these predators, they have spread themselves throughout the body of the church, and the church is decaying with this cancer, just eating it away. And the cancer isn't just the predatory priests. The cancer isn't just the predators. The cancer is also, and this is a huge part of it, the congregants who don't care to do anything about it. They don't care about what is taking place. In fact, when you actually try to do something to confront the problem, to confront the disease, they will condemn you, but they won't condemn the predator priest. They will actually defend the priest, they will protect the priest, they will speak in support of the priest, and they will get vitriolic and vicious and angry with you, the person who's actually trying to fix the problem. I joined the Catholic Church with this idealism in my head that I would see at least some semblance of original Christianity, and I didn't see any of it. Yes, they have the sacraments, they have the communion, they have the confessional, they have the sacrament of marriage, they have the funeral rites. All those things still remain, and they're fine. The problem is that the system around the sacraments is so decayed that the decay of the institution actually diminishes the very weight of the sacrament. It makes the whole thing rotten. Because yeah, you're going there for the sacraments, but the entire institution is rotten. Are the sacraments legit? Yes. Are the sacraments legitimate? Yes. But the problem is that the priest is rotten to the core. The bishops are rotten. The cardinals are rotten. And so with it's like the entire system is falling apart, and people are just sitting there like, well, at least we still have the sacraments. It's like, well, yeah, but you have a bunch of predators around. And you really can't trust your kids to be around these people because they could prey on your son. They could prey on your kids. And I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating this. So yes, you have the sacraments, but the sacraments are within this entire system that's decaying and that's cancerous. And this is something that we cannot ignore. It's like the priests in the Old Testament who were so corrupt and so evil that God himself said, listen, your sacraments don't mean, your sacrifices don't mean anything to me. And it came to the point where God told the prophet Jeremiah, don't even pray for these people because I will not listen to you. I will not listen to your prayers. The Bible talks about priests who are absolutely evil, who engaged in evil, and they did the sacrifices. And God didn't like their sacrifices. And so you have these priests who are predators and they're doing the sacraments. And it makes you wonder, does God really take seriously these sacrifices? Makes you wonder. It's a legitimate question. I heard things when I was in the Catholic Church. I saw things in the Catholic Church that I really should not have seen, and I experienced things in the Catholic Church that I should not have experienced. For example, there was a priest by the name of Robert L. Kinsel. Robert L. Kinsel was teaching that men can do really, really degenerate things, disgusting things, and they're fine. I went to the Diocese of Austin, tried to talk to them. They didn't do anything. They didn't do a damn thing. Kinsel, he was just an evil person, truly an evil person. And the diocese didn't do anything. In fact, and this is public information, there was a pedophile by the name of Robert Herdlicka, and he was a priest. And Robert Herdlicka was found guilty of molestation, and he was sentenced to prison. And Kinsel came out and defended Herdlicka and begged the authorities not to put him in prison and said, oh, you can take him to a Catholic rehabilitation center. That's what this Kinsel guy said. He covered up for a convicted pedophile. And I remember telling this to the priest who leads the church that Kinsel was in, Our Lady of Lebanon. I don't know if he's still there. And this priest, I remember his name was, I think it was Don Sawyer. And this priest gave me a call and he said, I don't know why you're engaging in this sort of problem, blah, blah, blah. And I told this guy, I said, hey, did you talk to Kinsel? Yeah, I talked to him. Did you bring up the fact that he covered up for a pedophile named Robert Herdlicka? And he said, oh, I didn't even bring it up. This is what this priest told me. And I remember telling him on the phone, you're supposed to be a priest, you're supposed to be the shepherd of the flock, and you didn't even confront this guy on the fact that he tried to protect a pedophile. Didn't even bring it up. And this guy ended up hanging up the phone on me. This is the Catholic Church. It's really, really disgusting. And then you had another priest named Monsignor Michael Yarbrough. The funny thing is, when you look him up on the internet, he has two different spellings for his last name. Sometimes it's presented as Yarbrough, and sometimes it's presented as Yarbrough. And years ago, Yarbrough sexually assaulted a young man by the name of Hector Escalante. He groped this young man who was mentally kind of slow. So he was a very vulnerable young man. And, well, what did the bishop do? This was also in the state of Texas. What did the bishop do? He promoted him from being just Father Yarbrough to being Monsignor Michael Yarbrough. Didn't really give a damn about the fact that he was a predator. In fact, when I met with Yarbrough, I didn't know that he was a predator. I was simply there as a layman. And he tells me, well, if you want to hang out, spend some time and, talk to me about theology or whatever, you can contact me and we can, meet up somewhere. We can meet up. At that point, I was suspicious because I had my experience with the Diocese of Austin and trying to actually get Robert Kinsel thrown out of the priesthood. So I knew that there was definitely a presence of predators in the Catholic Church. So I was quite suspicious. I Googled Yarbrough's name and I found the story about Hector Escalante. It's public information. I'm not saying anything that's a secret. So I read the story that Father Yarbrough, invited Escalante into his office, and that is where he assaulted him. He groped Escalante, and he also kissed him. So I decided, well, I can simply not contact this priest and just, have nothing happen and just live my life, or I will call this priest up and I will confront him. So I decided that I was going to confront him. And I called up Yarbrough and I said, yeah, let's meet up. And he said, well, let's meet in my office. See, when I heard that, I knew exactly what Yarbrough was about. I knew exactly the reason why he told me that. He was being a predator. He wanted me to go into his office. And I insisted that we meet in a public place. And he said, no, I insist that we meet in my office. He says, no. He said something like, I prefer that we meet in my office. And my little hairs on my arm went up because I knew exactly what his motivations were. His motivations were evil. I could not trust him. And you could say, well, Ted, maybe you were being paranoid. Maybe he wasn't going to do anything. Maybe. Can't trust someone who has a past history of sexual assault. So I said, no, let's meet in a cafe. And I said, I made up something like, hey, it's close to my job, so it makes it easier for me. So he said, okay, fine. He finally acquiesced. And we had a 2-hour something long discussion. And eventually we got into theology. And he said that he didn't really know if demons were real, which is completely contradictory to obvious Orthodox teaching. And I began to pressure him. I began to press these questions on him. Well, what do you mean they're not real? What are you talking about? I don't understand. How could you say that? You're a priest and all this stuff. So he said, well, I gotta go. And of course, the subject of homosexuality came up and all that stuff. And he said, well, I don't think someone who's homosexual goes to hell. I think, they can go to heaven. And he had all these very obviously heretical ideas. And he said, I gotta go. And I said, well, before you leave, let me just say one more thing. I said, does the name Hector Escalante ring a bell? Oof, his face just lit up. And I pulled out from my pocket a copy from the San Antonio Express. And I'm pretty sure it was San Antonio Express. And it was an article on what happened between him and Escalante. And he tried to, wiggle around it. Well, that's not true, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Eventually, he started power walking away. And I followed him, and I started to yell in the cafe that this man is a predator. This man is a predator. And of course, it was all eyes on me and him. And that was the whole point. So he ran away, and I saw him go into his little sports car, and he drove away. So then the next week, I wasn't done with him. The next week, I went to his church, brought a camera, and I confronted him again. And I told the ushers, this guy's a predator. And people were giving me nasty looks. I didn't care. I frankly did not give a damn because we have here a predator in a church. People should be absolutely pissed and enraged that this is happening in their own community. But they're not. The ushers eventually threw me out. And I did a video. I, of course, recorded it, edited it, made a video about it. And I contacted the people at Church Militant. Church Militant, which is ran by Michael Voris. Now, here's the thing. Years ago, before I even, confronted this guy, I was listening to Michael Voris on his radio show, and he said, you as a Catholic, you as a Christian, he said something that was very impactful to me. He said, are you willing to pick up a whip and drive the moneylenders out? And of course, he was referencing the story from the Gospel of John, which says that that Jesus took a whip out and he drove the moneylenders out. And I heard that and I said, that is a great question. Am I willing? Like, you as a Christian, are you willing? Are you willing to start a revolution against injustice? Because Jesus confronted injustice. You had these people in the court of the Gentiles, which is where the non-Jews would worship, and these the temple authorities were exploiting the people, making them exchange Roman currency for temple currency. They were exploiting them, making them give money so they can get a temple animal to sacrifice. And Jesus hated that injustice, and that was that fire that was within me. It was that hatred against injustice. And when you read these stories about sexual assault, young men, boys getting preyed on, priests who actually will teach very, very disgusting things to people, and then try to get away with it. Priests covering up for actual predators. That really eats me up. It still eats me up. I'm actually getting kind of emotional talking to you guys about this, because that zeal for justice is so alive in me. Like it's so ever present, and it should be ever present. And when Boris said that, when he asked that question, that stuck to my mind. So I decided, yeah, you know what? I am willing to help drive these people out. So I did the video, and the purpose of me doing the video wasn't just to confront this person. It wasn't just to scare this person. The purpose of me making the video, the purpose of me making this video, showing myself confronting this predator, was twofold. It was to, one, make sure that he doesn't prey on someone ever again. Because now he has to think twice. Like, well, what if this guy has a camera? What if this guy is, working with Theodore? How do I know? It makes him think twice before he commits to this sort of evil action again. Secondly, I wanted to present this video to people to encourage Catholics to confront these predators. And I truly believe that if enough people confronted these predators, I'm not going to call them people, if enough people confronted these predators, then the Catholic Church would be forced to actually reform itself and to do a serious purging of these people and to put in certain measures to truly mitigate and prevent this problem. I wanted, and this is what I told people, I even gave it a name. I called it Operation Whip, in reference to the story of Jesus taking a whip and whipping the exploiters out. And I said, confront these people and get it on film. And that way, the church is going to be so embarrassed that it would be bad for PR. Because that's one thing I learned. The only way to get the Catholic Church to act is to affect their PR. And I wanted people to follow my example. Well, Voris refused to present the video. His producer was interested, and his producer even told me that mostly everyone in the studio wanted to present that video, but there was one person who objected. Who else could that be but the person who has the lead in that studio? It's Michael Voris. And, to see Michael Voris collaborating with Milo Yiannopoulos, who also promotes pederasty and pedophilia, and who claims Catholicism, to see Michael Voris do that didn't really surprise me at all. And I just had experiences like this. It was so heartbreaking. And I remember hearing a story recently. There was a church that I used to go to. It was called Our Lady of Atonement Catholic Church. It was headed by a priest by the name of Christopher Phillips, Father Christopher Phillips. And, recently it was revealed that Phillips was covering up for a pedophile. And the pedophile just so happened to be the deacon at the church. Deacon Orr, O-R-R. And, Phillips knew that this guy was a pedophile. And we know what's so disturbing is I used to go to this guy's church. I went to his masses. I saw Deacon Orr there. And I didn't know that these people were evil. So people ask me, Ted, why are you so pessimistic? Why are you so this? Now you know. It's really, really a horrendous thing. It's ubiquitous, this sort of evil. And the fact that I tried to start a revolution against this stuff, and nobody wanted to really work with me. Nobody really wanted to actually go against these evil people, to combat this evil. Nobody wanted to do it. So the cancer in the Catholic Church isn't just the priest. It's also the congregants. And I tried to do a revolution, and it failed. At least that's what I thought. Because what it ended up causing was another revolution within myself. A revolution that no longer wants to see a right-left paradigm, that no longer really follows or falls into the narrative of a right-left paradigm, that sees both the left and the right for what they are, and that is just a bunch of evil people who want power. That's all it is. And so I caused a revolution within myself to no longer blindly fall into this credulity, this blind idealism, to see things for what they are, to see spiritual beauty for what it is, but at the same time to see the cancer that is decaying the entire institution, and to help people open their eyes to this. That to me is the most effective revolution. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.